Today, I'm going to present 4 different cases which are based on true events, and these events were published in the newspaper. As I highlight these 4 cases, ask yourself, what does the public really need to know versus what should be kept private? Case 1, sensitive news topics. Case study 1, deadly lesson, warning about sexual asphyxiation. The ethical issue in this case was prioritizing the public warning over the immediate sensitivity to the family and community of a beloved teacher who was found hanging dead in his backyard naked. It was deemed accidental. After further investigation, they decided it was sexual asphyxiation. The type of media ethics issues in this case was privacy. The core conflict revolves around the newspaper's decision to reveal highly private details about the teacher's death, sexual asphyxiation. I have taken the Judeo-Christian philosophical approach to this case. I believe we can address important concerns to the public, even providing numerical stats without disclosing names or private information. There is no perfect human, and every human has the right to privacy after death. Individuals, unless family or individuals decide otherwise, or sign a consent to release information. The real effects this case caused to the family were increased grief, pain, public scrutiny. The community felt outraged because they loved this teacher. They had fury that the newspaper printed this, and they had concerns. The newspaper and staff had intense exposure to public criticism and learned a very difficult lesson. The potential effects that could have happened to this family was having increased emotional trauma, social judgment, and feelings of isolation. Resolution, what I feel could have been done differently. The newspaper should have reported the death as accidental, providing limited essential information. This would fulfill the basic duty of journalism. The ethical principle of minimizing harm should always be top priority. Demoralizing the teacher's reputation by printing the hard truth went beyond what the public needed to know. Concerning situations that need to be addressed to the community can always be done in an appropriate manner at an appropriate time. Category 1, sensitive news topics. Case study 2, the fallen servant, when a hero is not a hero. The unethical act in this case is when a firefighter drove and reported for duty under the influence of alcohol. The type of media ethical issues represented in this case were privacy and truthfulness. The newspaper believed it had a responsibility to truthfulness of the factual findings because it seemed relevant for public safety purposes. The public's right to know in this case was outweighed by their right to the individual's privacy. The philosophical principle I chose for this case was Aristotle's golden mean. The golden mean is about finding the appropriate response that is virtuous for the circumstance. If this principle would have been used, unethical acts could have been avoided. The real effects this case had on its receivers were increased grief, pain, public scrutiny, and judgment. Also, a tarnished legacy of a firefighter, making it harder for his family and community to find peace. The potential effects on the receivers could be damage to the fire department's reputation, loss of community's trust, causing family and community increased pain and loss. What should have been done, since this firefighter's death was already announced, he was already honored and commended, I believe they should have left all of it alone to align with the principle of humanity and minimizing harm. The family could have been told privately. The manager of the fire department could have told the staff privately, having them all sign a non-share document. Also, the fire department could have then taken new measures and put new procedures in place to ensure that this never happens again. Category 2, invading privacy. Case study 1, intruding on grief. Does the public really have a need to know? This case is based on a father who lost his son in war. The ethical issue in this case was the media disregarded the dad's individual emotional state and right to privacy by taking him by surprise and ambushing him for an interview. This was a violation of ethical principles. They prioritized getting a story over basic human decency. The type of media ethical issues in this case was privacy. The core ethical violation is aggression and intrusion into the private grief of this father. Responsibility. Ethical obligations of journalists are to act with empathy, minimize harm, and respect the dignity of their sources, especially in times of tragedy. Fairness. The media's need was prioritized over the family's right to grieve and receive important news with dignity and support. The philosophical principle I chose for this case was veil of ignorance, which is a thought experiment that helps us imagine a scenario. How would I feel if this would happen to me or my family? The process helps to design fairness, ensuring all principles we choose are just and equitable for all. The real effects this unethical act had on the father was burden, loss of privacy, exploitation, because they kept his son death a secret so they could capture the father's raw reaction on live news. Ethical journalism prioritizes the autonomy and dignity of individuals. In times of tragedy, basic human empathy should guide interactions. Building trust and sharing genuine care aligns with ethical principles. Also, carefully navigating what the public really needs to know. Category 2, invading privacy. Case study 2, when public should remain private. Ethical issues from this case were use of a victim's personal details in a report about her alleged rape. Just because information is public record does not make it automatically ethical to publicly broadcast. The type of media ethic issues in this case were privacy. Public information should have remained private due to potential for harm. Responsibility, choosing the public's right to know over the potential impact on the individual and her family. Fairness, the way certain individuals are treated differently in media coverage. The philosophical principle I went with for this case is Kant's categorical imperative to act rationally, determining what is right and wrong, having dignity towards all beings. The real effects the unethical acts had on its receivers were unwanted scrutiny, increased vulnerability, self-blame, isolation, and loss of trust. The potential effects the unethical acts could have had on the receivers were psychological harm, reputation damage, social isolation, self-blame. The media could have received loss of credibility. What could have been done? A more ethical approach would have taken careful consideration for the potential for harm and realized the distinction between public interest and curiosity. The media should have maintained a commitment to responsibility and responsible editorial judgment.
The recording has stopped.